The explosion rocked the spacecraft, sending Lieutenant Marcus Hale tumbling across the command deck. Alarms blared as emergency lights bathed the interior in pulsating crimson. Through the viewport, the vast blackness of space was interrupted by flashes of plasma fire. The Zathura warships were closing in. "Shields down to 30%, shouted Navigator Keller, her fingers flying across the holographic interface. "We can't take another hit like that." Marcus pulled himself upright, tasting blood where he'd bitten his lip during the impact. "Evasive pattern Delta. Get us behind that debris field." The human coalition vessel lurched as it banked sharply, narrowly avoiding another barrage from the pursuing Zathura fighters. Their distinctive crescent-shaped hulls gleamed with an almost organic iridescence, beautiful and deadly, like everything about their species. "Lieutenant, they're trying to cut us off," Weapons Officer Torres warned, his dark eyes fixed on the tactical display. 3 more vessels just jumped in system. Marcus grimaced. His unit had been tasked with a simple reconnaissance mission along the disputed border region. Instead, they'd stumbled upon what appeared to be a Zathura supply convoy, and now they were paying the price for their discovery. "Deploy countermeasures and prepare for another jump," Marcus ordered, though he knew their FTL drive needed at least 5 more minutes to recharge. 5 minutes they probably didn't have. The ship shuddered as another blast grazed their hull. Around him, the bridge crew worked with the focused intensity that came from months of combat experience. They were good, some of the best in the coalition, but the Zathura had the tactical advantage. "Sir," Torres called out suddenly. "One of their smaller vessels just took a critical hit. Looks like friendly fire. It's breaking formation." Marcus immediately saw the opportunity. "Lock tractor beam on that ship and pull into Bay 3. Maybe we can salvage some intel before we jump out." "Are you insane?" Keller turned to him, eyes wide. "We have no time for prisoners." "That's an order, Navigator," Marcus replied firmly. His reputation for being too humanitarian had already caused friction with command, but he remained steadfast in his principles. Even in war, some lines shouldn't be crossed. The disabled Zathura vessel, barely larger than a shuttle, was dragged into their hangar bay just as the coalition ship finally made its jump to safety. The violent tunnel of hyperspace enveloped them, the pursuing Zathura fleet vanishing behind ribbons of distorted light. When Marcus arrived at the hangar bay, security teams had already established a perimeter around the captured vessel. Its hull design was typical Zathura biomechanical engineering, part grown, part constructed, with surfaces that seemed to undulate slightly even when stationary. "Status report," Marcus demanded as he approached Captain Vega, the security chief. "The vessel's systems are offline," Vega replied, her posture rigid. "Bioscans detect 1 occupant, still alive. We're preparing to breach." Marcus nodded. "I'm coming with you." Vega looked like she wanted to object, but thought better of it. "Your call, Lieutenant. Just remember, these things don't surrender. They fight to the death." The boarding team used plasma cutters to create an entry point through the Zathura ship's membrane-like hull. As the section peeled away, a rush of alien atmosphere escaped, slightly more sulfuric than human vessels, with an underlying sweetness that reminded Marcus of overripe fruit. Inside, emergency lighting cast eerie blue shadows across organic-looking consoles. The interior appeared to have suffered significant damage during the battle, with what looked like thick fluid, perhaps the ship's equivalent of hydraulics, leaking from ruptured conduits. They found the pilot strapped into what resembled a neural interface chair, partially embedded into the wall of the vessel. Unlike the bulky environmental suits of human pilots, Zathura operators connected directly with their craft through a complex symbiosis. The figure was motionless as they approached, surrounded by damaged equipment. "Careful," Vega warned, weapon raised. "Could be playing dead." As they drew closer, Marcus realized this wasn't the typical Zathura warrior they usually encountered in battle. The alien was distinctly feminine in form, with more humanoid features than he'd expected. Her skin had a bluish undertone covered with subtle, scale-like patterns that caught the light with an almost crystalline quality. What appeared to be blood, dark indigo in color, seeped from several wounds along her side and shoulder. "She's injured," Marcus said, holstering his weapon and reaching for the medical kit attached to his belt. "Lieutenant, protocol dictates," Vega began. "I know the protocol." Marcus cut her off, already moving closer to the wounded alien. "But we need her alive for intelligence." The Zathura female's eyes suddenly fluttered open, startlingly bright, with irises that glowed an electric blue. She jerked against her restraints, a sound somewhere between a hiss and a growl emanating from her throat. Marcus raised his hands in what he hoped was a universal gesture of peace. "We're not going to hurt you. You're injured. Let us help." The alien's gaze fixed on him, her expression shifting from hostility to something more complex. Despite her injuries, there remained an undeniable air of pride and defiance in her posture. When she spoke, her voice had a melodic, almost musical quality, the translator in Marcus's comm unit struggling to keep pace with her dialect. "You should kill me now. Human," she managed through obvious pain. "Your mercy will be your undoing. We need medical support in Bay 3. Marcus called into his comm, ignoring her threat. As he began to assess her injuries, he noticed unusual readings on his diagnostic tool. Her DNA structure was unlike anything he'd seen in previous Zathura captives. More complex, with markers that seemed to react unusually to proximity with human genetic material. As the medical team was en route, the alien suddenly reached out with surprising strength, grasping Marcus's wrist. Her touch was cool, almost electric against his skin. Her luminous eyes locked with his as she leaned forward, voice dropping to a whisper that seemed to bypass the translator and penetrate directly into his consciousness. "Show mercy, human. My body will give you powerful offspring." Before Marcus could process her words, the alien's grip slackened as she slipped into unconsciousness, her vital signs fluctuating wildly on the scanner. The medical team burst into the chamber moments later, pushing him aside as they worked to stabilize their unexpected prisoner. Standing back, Marcus watched as they transferred her to a containment stretcher, his mind racing with questions. Was her statement a desperate plea for her life? A manipulation tactic? Or something more? A revelation about Zathura biology they had never understood before? Hours later, aboard the main vessel, Marcus received the summons he'd been dreading. Admiral Crane, his commanding officer, wanted an immediate debriefing about the unauthorized prisoner acquisition. Known for his hardline stance against the Zathura, Crane had little patience for what he considered Marcus's excessive concern for alien rights. "Lieutenant," Crane's voice was ice-cold as Marcus entered the briefing room. "Would you care to explain why my ship is currently transporting a high-risk enemy combatant instead of executing standard containment protocols?" "Sir, the prisoner may possess valuable intelligence," Marcus replied, standing at attention. "Preliminary medical scans indicate she may be of a specialized Zathura subspecies we haven't encountered before." Crane's weathered face remained impassive. "And this justified endangering my crew?" "She was severely injured and restrained, sir. The risk was minimal compared to the potential intelligence value." "Intelligence value," Crane repeated slowly, "which is precisely why I've ordered course diverted to Frontier 9. The research division there has been requesting live Zathura specimens for their bioweapons program." Marcus felt his stomach turn. Frontier 9 was infamous among coalition officers, a research station where ethical limitations were considered flexible in the pursuit of military advantage. With respect, Admiral, the Geneva Expanded Conventions clearly state that prisoners of war. "Are you lecturing me on interspecies law, Lieutenant?" Crane come off sharply. "The Zathura eviscerated 3 colony worlds last year. They don't take prisoners, they harvest them. Your bleeding heart might be an admirable quality in peacetime, but it's a liability in this war." Marcus wanted to argue further, but knew it would be futile. "Well, my orders, sir. You captured it. You're responsible for it. Once we reach Frontier 9, you'll personally escort the prisoner to Dr. Elena Ward's research facility. After that, your involvement ends." Crane's tone left no room for discussion. Dismissed, Lieutenant. As Marcus turned to leave, Crane added, "And Hale, remember where your loyalties lie. That thing in our brig would slaughter your family without hesitation if given the chance." Marcus made his way to the medical bay, his mind troubled. The ship's doctor, Simmons, was reviewing data when he arrived. "How's our guest?" Marcus asked quietly. Simmons glanced around to ensure they were alone. "Stable for now, but she's different from others Athura we've examined. Her cellular structure shows remarkable adaptive properties." He lowered his voice further. "The most fascinating thing is how her genetic material responds to human DNA proximity. It's almost like it's reaching out, attempting to communicate on a molecular level." Marcus recalled her strange plea. Any idea what she meant about powerful offspring? "I'm not sure," Simmons admitted, "but if I had to guess, I'd say there might be some truth to it. Her reproductive system appears designed for cross-species compatibility, theoretically, at least." Their conversation was interrupted by the arrival of security personnel come to establish guard rotation outside the prisoner's isolation chamber. Marcus nodded to them professionally before turning back to Simmons. "I need 5 minutes with her. Alone." Simmons looked uncomfortable but stepped aside. "She's conscious but weak. Try not to agitate her. Her physiology is still unstable." Inside the isolation chamber, the Zathura female was secured to a medical bed, various sensors monitoring her condition. Force field restraints glimmered around her wrists and ankles, a precaution that seemed excessive given her weakened state. Her luminous eyes tracked him as he entered, narrowing slightly. "Return. To finish what you started, human." Her translator now properly calibrated, giving her words an artificial flatness. "My name is Lieutenant Marcus Hale," he said, approaching her bed. "And I didn't start anything. I want to help you." A sound escaped her that might have been laughter. "Help me?" "By delivering me to your butchers." Her gaze was penetrating, seeming to assess his very soul. "I know where this vessel travels. Your Frontier 9 is known to us." Marcus was surprised by her knowledge of Coalition facilities, but tried not to show it. "What's your name?" She was silent for a long moment, perhaps weighing the consequences of such a simple exchange. Finally, she spoke. "Ariana, clan daughter of the 7th Dominion." "Ariana," Marcus repeated, testing the name. "What you said earlier about offspring, what did you mean?" Her scales seemed to shift color slightly, taking on a deeper blue tone. "Your kind understands so little of us. You see only enemies to be destroyed." She turned her face away. "My body contains genetic sequences designed for adaptation. In times of great conflict, my species can integrate beneficial traits from others. It is how we have survived across the stars for millennia." "You're saying you can reproduce with other species?" "Not merely reproduce," Ariana corrected, her voice gaining strength. "Create something new, something stronger than either parent. It is rare, sacred among my people." Her eyes met his again. "I offered you this not as a gift, but as a bargain for my life. I have seen what happens to my kind in your research stations." Before Marcus could respond, the door slid open and Captain Vega entered. "Time's up, Lieutenant. Admiral's orders. Minimal contact with the prisoner." As Marcus reluctantly turned to leave, Ariana spoke again, her voice just loud enough for him to hear. "The war between our peoples began with betrayal. Human. Not all is as your leaders claim." The words haunted him as he left the medical bay, her luminous eyes lingering in his mind long after the door closed behind him. The journey to Frontier 9 took 3 days. 3 days during which Marcus found himself increasingly troubled by Ariana's words and by the fate that awaited her. He reviewed historical records of the conflict with the Zathura Dominion, finding the official accounts suddenly lacking in detail about how hostilities had first erupted 8 years earlier. There had been a peace treaty, negotiations for shared territory rights in the Proxima system, then sudden, catastrophic attacks that each side blamed on the other. When they finally docked at Frontier 9, Marcus was struck by the station's clinical, utilitarian design. Unlike the more hospitable Coalition outposts, Everything here seemed designed for function over comfort. Sterile white corridors, omnipresent security cameras, and personnel who moved with the silent efficiency of those accustomed to not asking questions. Admiral Crane personally oversaw Ariana's transfer, a detail that struck Marcus as unusual. Typically, high-ranking officers delegated such tasks. The prisoner was heavily sedated for the transfer, her normally luminescent skin dulled to a matte grayish blue. Dr. Ward will meet you at Research Wing B, Crane informed Marcus. Complete the transfer and return to the ship. We depart at 0800 tomorrow. Yes, sir, Marcus replied, maintaining his professional demeanor despite his growing unease. Any specific protocols I should be aware of? Dr. Ward's team handles everything once you're there. Your job is simply to deliver the package. Crane's choice of words, referring to Ariana as a package, only intensified Marcus's discomfort. Research Wing B was separated from the main station by a series of security checkpoints, each requiring progressively higher clearance. By the time Marcus and his security detail reached the final doors, they had passed through no fewer than 5 scanning systems and identity verifications. Dr. Elena Ward was waiting for them in what appeared to be a preparation area. Tall and austere, with steel-gray hair pulled back severely from her face, she exuded an air of cold authority that made even the security officers straighten their postures. Lieutenant Hale, she greeted him without offering her hand. I've been reviewing the preliminary data on your specimen. Quite remarkable. Admiral Crane tells me you're personally responsible for its capture. Marcus corrected reflexively. The prisoner is female. Her name is Ariana. Ward raised an eyebrow, studying Marcus with new interest. You've established communication, then? Excellent. That will prove useful in our work. What exactly is your work, Doctor? Marcus asked, watching as Ward's assistants, all wearing the distinctive blue uniforms of Coalition Science Division, prepare to transfer Ariana to their custody. The future of humanity's survival, Lieutenant, Ward replied, her tone suggesting she was reciting a familiar mantra. The Zathura possess biological advantages we need to understand and, if possible, replicate. Their adaptive immune systems, enhanced cellular regeneration, neural processing speed, all vastly superior to human capabilities. One of Ward's assistants approached, offering a tablet for Marcus to sign, confirming the transfer of custody. Marcus hesitated, his finger hovering over the screen. And how exactly do you study these advantages? Ward's expression hardened almost imperceptibly. Through comprehensive analysis of biological systems. Rest assured, Lieutenant, everything we do here is sanctioned at the highest levels of Coalition Command. That wasn't my question, Marcus pressed. Your question exceeds your clearance level, Ward replied coolly. The prisoner is now under my jurisdiction. Sign the transfer, or I'll have Admiral Crane informed of your insubordination. With deep reluctance, Marcus signed. As Ariana was wheeled away, her restraints, now connected to the facility's own security systems, her eyes fluttered open briefly. Even through the sedation, there seemed to be a moment of awareness as her gaze met his, a look that combined accusation and resignation. You'll receive notification once we've concluded our initial assessments, Ward said, already turning away. Though I suspect your involvement with this specimen is now complete, I'd like to be kept informed of her condition, Marcus stated firmly. Ward paused, looking back at him with clinical interest. Unusual request. May I ask why? Professional curiosity, Marcus replied, matching her detached tone. If her biology is as unique as preliminary scans suggest, the tactical implications could be significant for field operations. It was a flimsy justification, but Ward seemed to accept it with a nod. Very well. I'll authorize limited updates to be sent to your terminal. Now, if you'll excuse me, we have preparations to make. As Marcus and his security detail were escorted back toward the main station, he couldn't shake the feeling that he had just handed Ariana over to a fate worse than death. The words of his academy ethics instructor echoed in his mind. The measure of a civilization is how it treats its prisoners, especially in times of war. Back in his temporary quarters on Frontier 9, Marcus couldn't sleep. The station's artificial day-night cycle had shifted to evening hours, but his mind remained active, troubled by what he had witnessed and, more importantly, by what he had enabled through his compliance. His terminal chimed with an incoming message, the first of Ward's promised updates. Specimen: Zathura female, designation Z7. Status: initial testing phase completed. Findings: subject possesses enhanced genetic markers consistent with Zathura elite caste. Cellular response to stimuli unprecedented in previous specimens. Reproductive system confirms theoretical capacity for cross-species genetic integration. Next procedures: tissue sampling to commence at 0500. Extraction of reproductive material scheduled for 0700. The clinical detachment of the report made Marcus's stomach turn. Extraction of reproductive materials undoubtedly meant invasive procedures that Ariana had not consented to. Was this any different from the atrocities the Coalition accused the Zathura of committing? Marcus accessed the station's personnel directory, searching for anyone who might be sympathetic to his growing concerns. His search led him to Commander Talia Rivera, stationed in security operations. They had served together briefly 2 years ago on a peacekeeping mission before the war escalated. If anyone might help him, it would be Talia. He sent her a carefully worded message requesting a meeting to discuss security protocols for the recently arrived prisoner. Within minutes, he received a response agreeing to meet in the station's observation deck, a public enough location to avoid suspicion, but with enough privacy for honest conversation. The observation deck offered a panoramic view of the surrounding space, the swirling gases of the nearby nebula creating an eerily beautiful backdrop to their clandestine meeting. Talia was already there when Marcus arrived, her dark eyes watching him with a mixture of curiosity and wariness. "This isn't a social call, is it, Hale?" she asked without preamble as he approached. "Not exactly," he admitted, joining her at the viewport. "I need information about Research Wing B, specifically Dr. Ward's operation." Talia's expression grew guarded. "That's classified well above both our pay grades. I just delivered a prisoner there, Zathura female. Something doesn't feel right, Talia. The procedures they're planning." He stopped, realizing he risked implicating her simply by sharing what he knew. "The hybrid soldier program," Talia said quietly after ensuring no one was within earshot. "That's what Ward's team is working on, attempting to create human soldiers with Zathura biological advantages." Marcus felt his pulse quicken. "How?" "The genetic incompatibility has apparently been overcome, at least theoretically," Talia interrupted. "But the testing phase has been problematic. The test subjects, human volunteers initially, suffered catastrophic cellular breakdown. That's why they've been pushing for live Zathura specimens, particularly females with reproductive capabilities. The implications were horrifying. They're planning to use Ariana to breed hybrid soldiers?" Talia's eyebrows rose at his use of the prisoner's name, but she didn't comment on it. "According to what I've heard, yes. The process isn't pretty, Marcus, and it's definitely not something she'll survive. This violates every ethical protocol the Coalition stands for," Marcus said, his voice tight with suppressed anger. "Ethics get flexible when extinction seems like a possibility," Talia replied grimly. "The Zathura have pushed us back across 3 sectors in the past year alone. Command is desperate for a game-changer. Desperate enough to become the monsters we're fighting." Talia studied him for a long moment. "What exactly are you planning, Marcus? Because that look in your eyes, I've seen it before, right before you did something stupidly heroic that nearly got you court-martialed." Marcus hesitated. Involving Talia further could jeopardize her career, possibly her life. But he needed allies if he had any hope of intervening. "I don't know yet, but I can't just stand by while they torture and kill her for science." "Her," Talia repeated. "Not it, or the alien, or the prisoner. You've connected with this. Ariana, she's intelligent, Talia. Self-aware. She understands what's happening to her. How is what Ward plans to do any different from what we condemned the Zathura for during the Proxima massacre?" Talia sighed. running a hand through her short dark hair. Look, I can get you access to the research wing security systems. Temporary clearance, nothing that would raise immediate flags. But whatever you're thinking of doing, you need to be damn sure it's worth the consequences. Thank you, Marcus said sincerely. As he turned to leave, Talia caught his arm. Just answer one question for me, Marcus. Why risk everything for an enemy? He thought about Ariana's words, about betrayal and hidden truths, about the strange connection he felt to her despite everything he had been taught to believe. Because sometimes, he finally replied, the real enemy isn't who we've been told it is. With Talia's help, Marcus gained access to Research Wing B under the pretext of a security consultation. The temporary clearance she provided wouldn't last long, but it was enough to get him inside and, more importantly, to the secure terminal where prisoner monitoring was centralized. What he discovered horrified him. Ward's team had already begun their procedures, extracting tissue samples from Ariana without anesthesia under the scientific justification that pain responses revealed important data about Zathura nervous systems. The logs detailed her resistance, her eventual sedation, and the collection of reproductive cells that would form the basis of Ward's hybrid experiments. Most disturbing were the notes about the planned full extraction schedule for the following morning, a procedure that, reading between the lines of clinical jargon, would essentially harvest Ariana's entire reproductive system while she was still alive. Using Talia's security credentials, Marcus located Ariana's holding cell and made his way there, heart racing with the knowledge that his actions now crossed the line from concern into outright treason. The guard posted outside her cell recognized him from the prisoner transfer. Lieutenant. The guard acknowledged with a nod. Dr. Ward mentioned you might be stopping by to check the security measures. Marcus kept his expression neutral, silently thanking Talia for her thoroughness. Just following up. Command wants a complete assessment before the morning procedures. The guard seemed to accept this explanation, stepping aside to allow Marcus entry. Inside, the cell was clinically stark. White walls, a single bio bed with restraint fields active, and monitoring equipment that hummed softly, tracking Ariana's vital signs. She lay motionless, her normally luminescent skin now dull and patchy with dark bruises where tissue samples had been extracted. Her eyes were closed, but the rapid movement beneath her eyelids suggested she wasn't fully unconscious. I need to check her restraints, Marcus told the guard. Standard protocol review. Of course, sir, the guard replied, remaining at his post outside the door. Once the door sealed behind him, Marcus moved quickly to Ariana's side. Ariana, he whispered, keeping an eye on the security camera in the corner. He knew Talia had arranged a temporary loop in the footage, but he couldn't be certain how long it would last. Her eyes fluttered open, the electric blue now dimmed to a pale glow. Recognition dawned slowly, followed by a flicker of contempt. Come, to observe your scientist's work? She managed, her voice barely audible. I came to help you, Marcus said urgently. What they're planning, it's wrong. I'm going to get you out of here. Disbelief and suspicion crossed her features. Why would you betray your kind? For mine, I'm not betraying anyone, Marcus insisted. What's happening here betrays everything the coalition claims to stand for. The real question is whether you're strong enough to move if I disable these restraints. A ghost of her former pride animated her expression. I am Zathura. We endure. Marcus quickly explained his nascent plan. With Talia's help, he could create a diversion in another section of the research wing, temporarily disabling the security systems. During that window, they would make their way to the secondary shuttle bay, where an automated medical transport was scheduled for departure to the main fleet. If they could stow away aboard that shuttle. And then what, human? Ariana asked, her piercing gaze seemingly reading his thoughts. Where we go? Your people will hunt you as a traitor. Mine will kill you on sight. It was the question Marcus had been avoiding even in his own mind. One problem at a time, he told her. First, we get you away from Dr. Ward and her procedures. Something shifted in Ariana's expression. A softening, perhaps, or the first glimmer of trust. My offer remains, she said quietly. If it is offspring you desire as payment for this mercy. That's not why I'm doing this. Marcus cut her off firmly. No one should be treated as you've been, regardless of species. Before she could respond, his comm unit vibrated with an incoming message from Talia. Ward returning to wing, be ahead of schedule. Get out now. Marcus cursed under his breath. Change of plans, he told Ariana. I have to go, but I'll be back tonight. Be ready. As he turned to leave, Ariana called after him, her voice stronger than before. Marcus Hale, your compassion is rare among your kind. I will remember it, whatever comes. The knowledge that Dr. Ward was returning early forced Marcus to accelerate his plans. He met with Talia in a maintenance corridor, her expression grave as she updated him on the situation. Ward moved up the extraction procedure. She informed him, her voice tight with urgency. It's scheduled for 2,300 hours tonight, not tomorrow morning. Apparently, their initial tests showed some kind of degradation in the specimen's cellular structure. They want to complete the extraction before further deterioration. Marcus felt a surge of anger and panic. That's less than 6 hours from now, which means you need to either abandon this insane rescue mission or execute it immediately, Talia replied frankly. I've managed to recruit 2 others who share our ethical concerns, Engineers Salo and Vantis. They've agreed to help, though they don't know the full details. Can they be trusted? Talia nodded. Salo lost family on Europa when the conflict started. She doesn't believe the official story about the Zathura striking first. Vantis is just a decent human being who's seen enough of Ward's work to be sick of it. With their help, a plan quickly took shape. Salo would create a cascading system failure in environmental control. Nothing life-threatening, but enough to trigger automatic protocols that would temporarily override security lockdowns. Vantis, meanwhile, would prepare the medical shuttle, programming it for an unauthorized departure trajectory that wouldn't immediately register as suspicious. Talia herself would ensure the path from Ariana's cell to the shuttle bay remained clear, using her security clearance to reroute patrols. Marcus would be responsible for extracting Ariana and getting her to the rendezvous point undetected. Once you're on that shuttle, you're on your own, Talia warned him. And Marcus, you know what this means for your career, your life. Marcus had already accepted the consequences. Some things matter more than following orders, he said simply. At precisely 2,100 hours, the plan was set in motion. As predicted, the environmental system's failure created immediate chaos throughout the research wing. Alarms blared as atmospheric pressure fluctuated and lighting systems went haywire, plunging corridors into darkness before emergency backups engaged. Under cover of this confusion, Marcus made his way back to Ariana's cell. The guard who had been stationed there had responded to the emergency protocols, leaving the prisoner temporarily unattended, exactly as Talia had arranged. When Marcus entered, Ariana was already alert, her weakened condition seemingly improved by the mere prospect of escape. Your timing is impeccable, human, she remarked as he worked to disable her restraints. Can you walk? Marcus asked, noticing how she winced as the restraint fields deactivated. If the alternative is remaining here, I could fly, she replied with grim determination. Marcus helped her to her feet, supporting her weight as her legs trembled beneath her. He had brought a medical officer's uniform for her to wear. Not a perfect disguise, but enough to avoid immediate detection in the confusion. We have approximately 12 minutes to reach the shuttle bay, he informed her, checking the corridor before leading her out of the cell. Environmental control's failure has triggered automated quarantine protocols. Most personnel are heading for emergency stations. They moved as quickly as Ariana's condition allowed, utilizing maintenance corridors and service tunnels mapped out by Talia's team. Twice they had to duck into alcoves to avoid security patrols. Ariana's labored breathing, the only sound betraying their presence. As they neared the shuttle bay, Marcus's comm unit vibrated with an urgent message from Talia. Ward knows. Lockdown imminent. Hurry. We need to move faster, Marcus urged, practically carrying Ariana now as her strength began to fail. Leave me, she gasped, her luminescent skin pulsing weakly with each labored breath. Save yourself. You have shown enough mercy. That's not happening, Marcus insisted, pushing onward. We started this together. We'll finish it together. They reached the final corridor leading to the shuttle bay, just as a station-wide announcement blared through the speakers. Security alert. Unauthorized personnel attempting to access restricted areas. Full lockdown protocols initiating in 3 minutes. The shuttle bay doors loomed ahead, but as they approached, Marcus saw a familiar figure blocking their path. Dr. Elena Ward herself, flanked by 2 security officers with weapons drawn. Lieutenant Hale. Ward's voice was cold with contempt. I must admit, I underestimated the depth of your sentimentality. Marcus positioned himself between the guards and Ariana, mind racing for options. This isn't sentimentality, Doctor. It's humanity, something your research seems to have abandoned. Ward's expression hardened. Spare me your moral posturing, Lieutenant. That creature behind you represents the key to humanity's survival, to our victory in this war. Are you truly willing to sacrifice millions of human lives for one alien? Is that what they told you about the Proxima Treaty too? Marcus challenged that sacrificing peace was necessary for some greater good. A flicker of something, doubt perhaps, crossed Ward's features before her professional mask reasserted itself. Security, detain Lieutenant Hale and return the specimen to containment. Use lethal force if necessary, but the specimen must be preserved. The guards advanced, weapons trained on Marcus. Behind him, he felt Ariana tense, summoning what little strength she had left. Wait! The command came from an unexpected source. Engineer Salo had appeared at the far end of the corridor, accompanied by Vantis and, surprisingly, Talia. Everyone needs to see this. Salo held up a data tablet, its screen displaying what appeared to be classified documents. While creating the diversion, I accessed Ward's personal files. The hybrid soldier program isn't about saving humanity, it's about controlling it. She swiped through images of human test subjects, their bodies grotesquely transformed by failed Zathura integration attempts. These weren't volunteers, they were political dissidents. People who questioned the official narrative about how the war started. Ward's face drained of color. That's classified information. Security, arrest them all. But the security officers hesitated, visibly disturbed by the images on Salo's tablet. One of them lowered his weapon slightly. Dr. Ward, is this true? The momentary distraction was all Marcus needed. With a subtle nod to Talia, he prepared to make a final dash for the shuttle bay. What happened next occurred so rapidly that Marcus barely had time to process it. Ward, seeing her authority crumbling, drew a concealed weapon from her lab coat. If you won't protect humanity's future, I will, she snarled, aiming not at Marcus but at Ariana. Marcus moved instinctively, throwing himself into the path of the weapon just as it discharged. Pain exploded across his chest as the energy blast caught him squarely, sending him crashing to the floor. Through a haze of agony, he heard shouts, saw the security officers finally turning their weapons on Ward, watched Talia rushing to his side. Marcus, stay with me. Talia's voice seemed to come from very far away. Then Ariana was kneeling beside him, her luminescent hands pressed against his wound. Through the haze of pain, Marcus felt an odd sensation, a cool, electric tingling spreading from her touch. What are you doing? Talia asked, her voice tight with panic. Cellular stabilization, Ariana replied, her voice strained with effort. My people can temporarily suspend tissue degradation. It will buy him time. Marcus tried to speak, but only managed a pained gasp. Ariana's eyes locked with his, their glow intensifying as she focused her energy. You risked everything for me, she whispered. Now I return to mercy. Alarms continued to blare throughout the station, announcing the imminent lockdown. The security officers had detained Ward, but they looked uncertain about their next move. We need to go now, Vantis urged, appearing at their side. The shuttle's prepped, but the automatic launch sequence is already counting down. Help me get him up, Ariana commanded, her authoritative tone belying her weakened state. Together with Talia, they lifted Marcus to his feet, half carrying him toward the shuttle bay doors. We'll hold them off, Salo promised, positioning herself with the security officers who had seemingly switched allegiances in light of Ward's actions and revelations. Just get to the shuttle. The medical shuttle was small, designed for automated transport of supplies rather than passengers. As they maneuvered Marcus inside, Talia hesitated at the entrance. "I can't come with you," she said, her expression torn. "Someone needs to stay behind, explain what happened. Try to make them understand." Ariana regarded her with newfound respect. "Your courage rivals any Zathura warriors." Talia nodded once, then stepped back as the shuttle doors began to close. "There's a rendezvous point programmed into the navigation system, a neutral trading outpost in the Vegas sector. You should be able to find help there." Her eyes met Marcus's one last time. "Good luck." The shuttle's engines hummed to life as the bay doors opened to the vast emptiness of space. Marcus, drifting in and out of consciousness, was vaguely aware of Ariana moving around the small cabin, securing him to a medical berth and accessing the shuttle's limited first aid supplies. "Stay awake, human," her voice commanded, anchoring him to consciousness. "Your body is still in shock. I need you to fight." "Why?" Marcus managed through gritted teeth. "Why help me? You could take this shuttle, return to your people." Ariana's hands continued their work, applying emergency medical gel to his wound with surprising gentleness. "Because you showed me that not all humans are as I was taught. And perhaps I need to show you the same about my kind." As the shuttle accelerated away from Frontier 9, Marcus caught glimpses of the station through the viewport, its imposing structure receding into the distance. Then, without warning, space around them seemed to ripple and distort. "No," Ariana breathed, her voice tense with recognition. "They found us." Through the viewport, the distinctive crescent shapes of Zathura warships materialized, at least 3 of them, their hulls gleaming with that same organic iridescence Marcus had observed during their initial encounter. The small medical shuttle stood no chance against such firepower. "How did they know?" Marcus asked, struggling to stay conscious. "They didn't," Ariana replied grimly. "This is a rescue mission for me. My father must have tracked my biosignature." Marcus felt a cold wave of dread. He had escaped one death only to face another, potentially worse one. "Your father?" "Senior Commander the Lax of the 7th Dominion," Ariana confirmed. "And he will show no mercy to the human he finds with me." Before Marcus could respond, the shuttle shuddered violently as a tractor beam locked onto them. The small vessel's engines whined in futile protest as they were inexorably drawn toward the largest of the Zathura warships. "Listen to me carefully," Ariana said urgently, her face close to his. "When we board, say nothing. Let me speak. My father respects strength, so show no fear despite your wound. And whatever happens, remember not everything in this war is as it seems." The shuttle's systems began powering down as they were pulled into the Zathura vessel's docking bay. Through the viewports, Marcus caught glimpses of the alien interior, vastly different from human ships, with corridors that seemed partially grown rather than constructed, pulsing with an internal bioluminescence that reminded him of Ariana's skin. When the shuttle doors finally opened, they were greeted by a contingent of Zathura warriors, tall, imposing figures in what appeared to be living armor that shifted and adapted to their movements. Their weapons were trained unwaveringly on Marcus. Ariana stepped forward, speaking rapidly in her native tongue, a musical, complex language full of tonal shifts. One warrior stepped forward, his armor more elaborate than the others, with what looked like ceremonial markings etched into its surface. When he removed his helmet, Marcus saw the family resemblance immediately. The same luminescent eyes, though as burned with a fierce intensity that made Ariana's look gentle by comparison. Commander the Lax regarded his daughter for a long moment before responding, his words incomprehensible to Marcus without a translator. Whatever he said caused Ariana to stand straighter, her chin lifting in defiance. Their exchange grew heated, with the Lax gesturing sharply toward Marcus several times. Finally, the commander barked an order, and 2 warriors moved toward Marcus, clearly intending to seize him. Ariana stepped between them, her voice ringing with authority. Nexathla Kair Vex Thou. The words needed no translation. It was clearly a challenge or command. Thelax's expression darkened, but remarkably, he signaled his warriors to stand down. Instead, he approached Marcus himself, studying him with cold calculation. "You are the one who stole my daughter?" he asked, his translator rendering his words in harsh, clipped tones. Before Marcus could respond, Ariana interjected, "He saved me, father, from experimentation and death at human hands." Thelax's gaze remained fixed on Marcus. And why would a human soldier betray his own kind for his Athura? Despite his pain and fear, Marcus met the commander's gaze steadily. Because right and wrong transcend species. What they planned to do to her was wrong. A flicker of surprise crossed Thelax's features before his expression hardened once more. "Take him to containment," he ordered his warriors, "and prepare him for interrogation. I want to know everything about this." Humanitarian. As the warriors moved to obey, Ariana placed a hand on her father's arm, a gesture that seemed to surprise both Thelax and his subordinates. "Father, he requires medical attention. Without it, he will die before your interrogation begins." Thelax regarded his daughter with narrowed eyes. Since when does a daughter of the Seventh Dominion concern herself with the comfort of human prey? Since this human risked everything to defy his own people's cruelty, Ariana replied unflinchingly. "His blood is on my hands now. By our own laws of debt and honor, I am bound to preserve his life." The tension in the docking bay was palpable as father and daughter locked eyes in silent battle of wills. Finally, Thelax gave a curt nod. "Very well. He will receive basic treatment, enough to keep him alive for questioning." His gaze turned to Marcus once more. "But make no mistake, human. Your fate is sealed. The only question is how much you will suffer before the end." Marcus was taken to what appeared to be a medical chamber, though its alien technology bore little resemblance to human facilities. The walls themselves seemed alive, pulsing with a soft blue glow that synchronized with his heartbeat once he was placed on an examination platform. Gelatinous restraints formed around his wrists and ankles, secure but not painful. Zathura medical practitioners, distinguished by their lighter armor and more delicate build, worked on his wound using instruments that appeared to be partially biological. The sensation was bizarre, a combination of stinging pain and immediate relief as damaged tissue began to rapidly regenerate. Throughout the procedure, Ariana remained present, though kept at a distance by her father's obvious command. Her expression was unreadable, but whenever their eyes met, Marcus sensed a silent communication, a plea for patience, perhaps, or a promise that all was not yet lost. When a medical treatment was complete, Marcus was transferred to a containment cell, a chamber whose walls seemed to breathe, contracting and expanding almost imperceptibly. Unlike the harsh, artificial environments of human brigs, this space felt organic, though no less confining. Hours passed in isolation. The wound on his chest had been sealed, the pain reduced to a dull throb. Whatever Zathura medical technology had been applied, it was clearly more advanced than human equivalents. He would have been in recovery for days with. Coalition treatment. The cell door finally opened to admit Commander Thelax, accompanied by 2 guards and, surprisingly, Ariana. The commander dismissed the guards with a gesture, though they remained visible outside the transparent portion of the door. "Your wound heals well," Thelax observed dispassionately. "Zathura medicine is superior to your primitive techniques." "Thank you for the treatment," Marcus replied evenly, determined to maintain dignity. Thelax made a sound that might have been a derisive laugh. "Do not mistake necessity for mercy, human. I merely require you functional for what comes next." He paced the small cell, studying Marcus as one might study an unusual specimen. "My daughter tells an interesting tale of human scientists experimenting on her, of planned extraction procedures, of your inexplicable intervention." "It's the truth," Marcus stated simply. "Perhaps, but incomplete." Thelax stopped pacing, fixing Marcus with his penetrating gaze. "What I wish to understand is your motivation." Humans do not act against self-interest without cause. Marcus glanced at Ariana, whose expression remained carefully neutral. Sometimes conscience is motivation enough. Conscience. The Lax repeated the word as though testing an unfamiliar concept. A curious notion from a species that has slaughtered thousands of my people, poisoned our colony worlds, and violated every peace agreement ever established between us. Marcus frowned. The historical record I've seen suggests the opposite, that Zathura forces struck first at Proxima, breaking the treaty and initiating the conflict. Something dangerous flashed in Thelax's eyes. Is that what your coalition teaches its soldiers? That we are the aggressors, the monsters who must be exterminated? He turned to Ariana. Show him. Ariana hesitated only briefly before approaching, a small device in her hand that she placed against Marcus's temple. This will access your visual cortex, she explained quietly. It will show you memories, not yours but ours. The truth about how this war began. Before Marcus could object, the device activated. His vision blurred, then cleared to reveal what could only be described as memories that weren't his own, vivid, immersive recollections from a Zathura perspective. He saw diplomatic meetings between human and Zathura representatives, negotiations proceeding amicably despite cultural differences. He witnessed the signing of the Proxima Treaty, establishing shared jurisdiction and demilitarized zones. Then came disturbing images of what appeared to be coalition ships entering Zathura territory under false identification, deploying what looked like environmental terraforming equipment. Except it wasn't terraforming. The next memory showed Zathura colonies suffering ecological collapse, atmosphere degradation, water contamination, massive die-offs. Children, yes, Zathura children, with their smaller forms and brilliantly glowing eyes, gasping for breath, their skin losing its luminescence. Finally, he saw the Zathura response. Military vessels mobilizing, not in aggression, but in desperate defense of dying worlds. The first battles, presented in human media as unprovoked Zathura attacks, were actually attempts to destroy the devices, slowly killing their planets. When the device deactivated, Marcus found himself gasping, disoriented by the alien memories still echoing in his mind. That can't be true, he managed, though doubt had already taken root. Our leaders wouldn't. Wouldn't what? The Lax demanded. Wouldn't commit genocide if it meant securing valuable resources? Wouldn't sacrifice an alien species for territorial advantage? His voice dripped with contempt. Your history suggests otherwise, human. Marcus looked to Ariana, searching for any sign that what he'd been shown was manipulation or propaganda. Her expression held only solemn confirmation. Why show me this? Marcus asked finally. If what you've shown me is true, then I'm your enemy. Why not just execute me? Because, Ariana answered before her father could speak, you proved something I had believed impossible, that individual humans can rise above their leaders' corruption. That compassion can transcend species. The Lax made a dismissive gesture. My daughter has always been an idealist. I see you merely as potentially useful. You have access, knowledge of coalition military movements, security protocols. You want me to betray my people, Marcus stated flatly. Your people betrayed themselves when they initiated this war under false pretenses, the Lax countered. But no, Lieutenant Hale, I do not expect you to become a traitor overnight based on memories you cannot verify. I merely wish you to consider possibilities beyond the narrative you've been fed. He turned to leave, pausing at the door. You will remain here while I consult with the Dominion Council regarding your ultimate disposition. In the meantime, reflect on what you've seen. Ask yourself why your Dr. Ward was so eager to harvest my daughter's reproductive capabilities. Perhaps there are connections you've not yet made. After the Lax departed, Ariana remained, her luminescent gaze studying Marcus with renewed interest. You believed it, she said quietly. The memories. I saw recognition in your eyes. Marcus sat heavily on the cell's single bench. Parts of it aligned with inconsistencies I've noticed in our official records. The sudden classification of previously public information about Proxima. the rapid advancement of certain biological weapons programs. He looked up at her. But I can't accept that my entire government, the coalition leadership, not your entire government, Ariana corrected. Power concentrates. Decisions that affect billions can be made by mere dozens. The rest follow orders, believe the necessary lies. She moved closer, lowering her voice. Like the lie that Zathura's genetic adaptability is meant for conquest rather than survival. What do you mean? My father showed you only part of the truth, she explained. What I offered you when we first met, my body's capacity to create powerful offspring. It is not a weapon. It is our species' response to crisis. Her hand unconsciously moved to her abdomen. Throughout our evolution, when our people faced extinction events, climate change, radiation surges, disease, certain females developed the ability to integrate beneficial genetic traits from other species. The offspring carried hybrid advantages that allowed survival in new conditions. Understanding dawned on Marcus. Dr. Ward wasn't trying to create super soldiers from scratch. She discovered this ability and wanted to weaponize it. Ariana nodded grimly. The irony is that such offspring are born of cooperation, of mutual survival needs. Forced extraction, as she planned, would have yielded only partial success at best, abominations at worst. And now? Marcus asked, what happens to me now? That depends, Ariana replied, her expression softening slightly, on what you choose to do with the truth you've been shown. Before Marcus could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the ship, battle stations alerts, unmistakable in any language or culture. Ariana's head snapped up, her posture tensing. What is it? Marcus demanded. Coalition forces, she replied tersely. A full battle group. They must have tracked the shuttle. Her luminescent skin pulsed rapidly with what Marcus now recognized as anxiety. They're coming for you, or more likely for me. The ship lurched as it executed evasive maneuvers. Over the ship-wide communication system, orders were being issued in the Zathura language, too rapid for Marcus to interpret even if he'd understood the words. Your father will fight rather than surrender you, Marcus realized aloud. And your people will destroy this vessel rather than allow me to remain free, Ariana countered. The cycle of violence continues. The cell door slid open abruptly, revealing Commander the Lax accompanied by a full contingent of warriors. Prepare the human for transfer, he ordered. He returns to his kind. Marcus stood in confusion. You're releasing me? Thelax's expression was unreadable. I am using you. A prisoner exchange, you for safe passage out of this sector. His gaze shifted to Ariana. Your presence is required on the command deck. We may need your knowledge of coalition tactics. As Marcus was escorted from the cell, Ariana caught his arm, her fingers pressing something small and hard into his palm. Some kind of data device, he realized, closing his fist around it before the guards could notice. Remember what you've seen, she whispered urgently. There is more at stake than either of our lives. The Zathura ship shuddered under what was clearly weapons fire as Marcus was led through its organic corridors toward a shuttle bay. Emergency lighting pulsed in patterns that seemed to communicate information to the crew more efficiently than verbal announcements could have. Commander the Lax strode ahead, issuing orders to various officers they passed. Though Marcus couldn't understand the words, the tension was unmistakable. The Zathura vessel was outgunned and surrounded. Your coalition ships are hailing us, the Lax informed Marcus as they reached the shuttle bay. They demand your return and my daughter's surrender. They claim she's a research subject vital to human security. Dr. Ward, Marcus realized, she must have convinced command of Ariana's importance to the hybrid soldier program. Thelax's expression darkened. Then you understand why I cannot surrender her. Ido, Marcus ignorant. But this confrontation will only result in more casualties on both sides. What alternative do you propose, Lieutenant? That I meekly allow my daughter to be taken and dissected by your scientists? Marcus thought rapidly, the small data device Ariana had, past him seeming to burn in his palm. Let me speak to the coalition commander. I can explain what's really happening, the experimentation, the ethical violations. Some of Ward's own security team witnessed it. There must be others who would oppose such methods. The Lax studied him with skeptical intensity. You believe your word will outweigh your military's desire for biological weapons. Not alone, Marcus admitted, but with evidence, he subtly indicated the concealed data device, and with Ariana's testimony, provided voluntarily and under diplomatic protection. A nearby console flared with warning indicators as another volley from the coalition ships struck the Zathura vessel shields. Your time to decide is limited, Commander, Marcus pressed. But consider this. If there's even a chance to end this confrontation without bloodshed, without risking your daughter, isn't it worth attempting? The Lax was silent for a long moment, his luminescent eyes inscrutable. Finally, he gave a curt nod. You will have your chance, human. But know this, if you betray my trust, if my daughter is threatened, I will obliterate your coalition fleet regardless of the cost to my own vessel. Minutes later, Marcus found himself aboard a Zathura shuttle, approaching the coalition flagship under a temporary ceasefire. Ariana sat beside him, her father having insisted on her presence, partly as leverage, partly to allow her to speak for herself. Your Admiral Crane will not be pleased to see us together, Ariana observed quietly. Crane isn't known for his flexibility, Marcus agreed grimly. But he is known for his pragmatism. If I can convince him that Ward's program violated coalition law and ethics codes, that the potential diplomatic solution outweighs the biological warfare option. Ariana's expression suggested skepticism, but she nodded. Then I must be convincing. I must make him see that cooperation offers more than coercion ever could. The shuttle docked with the coalition flagship, where they were met by a full security detail, led by none other than Admiral Crane himself. His weathered face registered shock at the sight of Marcus, accompanied by Ariana, moving freely rather than as a prisoner. Lieutenant Hale. Crane's voice was cold with barely contained fury. I see reports of your treason were not exaggerated. Admiral, Marcus acknowledged, maintaining military posture despite everything. I need to speak with you urgently regarding Dr. Elena Ward's research program and its violations of coalition ethical protocols. Crane's eyes narrowed. The only violation I'm concerned with is your aiding the escape of a high-value research subject and apparent defection to enemy forces. With respect, sir, that research subject is a sentient being who is slated for non-consensual surgical harvesting, Marcus countered. I have evidence of Ward's violation of the Geneva Expanded Conventions, including experimental procedures performed on political dissidents without oversight or consent. This captured Crane's attention, though his expression remained guarded. What evidence? Marcus carefully revealed the data device Ariana had passed him. Complete records from Frontier 9, including Ward's personal logs detailing her methodology and long-term objectives. Objectives, I might add, that were never fully disclosed to Coalition Command. After a tense moment, Crane gestured to a nearby conference room. You have 5 minutes to make your case, Lieutenant. After that, you'll be detained for court-martial proceedings, and the alien will be remanded to appropriate containment. Inside the conference room, Marcus wasted no time uploading the data from Ariana's device to the main display. The files were comprehensive, not just Ward's research notes, but security footage for Frontier 9, testimony from test subjects who had survived the early phases of experimentation, and most damning of all, communications between Ward and certain high-ranking officials who had authorized her work outside normal coalition oversight. These officials, Marcus highlighted several names, authorized biological warfare development that explicitly violated 3 separate interstellar conventions the coalition publicly claims to uphold. They did so because Dr. Ward convinced them that Zathura reproductive biology could be weaponized. He gestured to Ariana, who stood with quiet dignity despite the hostile environment. But what Ward either failed to understand or deliberately misrepresented is that the genetic adaptability she sought to exploit is fundamentally cooperative in nature. It evolved as a survival mechanism for extreme environments, not as a tool of conquest. Ariana stepped forward, her luminescent eyes meeting Crane's unflinchingly. Admiral, My species' ability to create hybrid offspring requires mutual consent and compatible genetic markers. The process Dr. Ward attempted would have produced only monsters, unstable combinations doomed to cellular breakdown. She hesitated, then added, but willing cooperation between our species could yield benefits neither of us can achieve alone. Crane's expression remained skeptical, but Marcus could see the tactical calculation happening behind his eyes. What exactly are you proposing? A return to diplomatic relations, Marcus stated firmly, starting with an investigation into the real causes of the Proxima conflict and environmental weapons deployed against Zathura colonies. Environmental weapons? Crane's surprise seemed genuine. What are you talking about, Lieutenant? Marcus gestured to another file on the display, the memory recordings Ariana's father had shown him. This suggests that devices disguised as terraforming equipment were actually designed to make Zathura worlds uninhabitable. The initial Zathura military response was aimed at destroying these devices, not attacking human settlements. Crane watched the footage with growing concern. This is troubling, if accurate, but it contradicts everything in our official records. Because those records were falsified, Ariana interjected. By the same officials who authorized Dr. Ward's research, officials who sought resource control in the Proxima sector regardless of the cost in lives, human or Zathura. For several long moments, Crane was silent, his gaze moving between the evidence on display, Marcus and Ariana. Finally, he activated his comm unit. Security, maintain holding pattern. Do not engage Zathura vessels until further notice. To Marcus and Ariana, he said, I need to consult with command about this. If what you've shown me is authenticated, it will reveal a conspiracy that has cost thousands of lives on both sides. Marcus finished gravely. And an opportunity to end a war that never should have begun. Wait here, Crane ordered, moving toward the door. Under guard, he added, nodding to the security officers positioned outside. This isn't over, Lieutenant. Regardless of these revelations, your actions constitute mutiny at minimum. Understand, sir, Marcus acknowledged. But some principles transcend military hierarchy. After Crane departed, Marcus and Ariana were left alone in the conference room, though clearly monitored through both visible and hidden surveillance systems. Your admiral is more receptive than I expected, Ariana observed quietly. Crane is a soldier first, politician second, Marcus replied. He follows orders, but he's seen enough combat to recognize when something doesn't add up. He turned to face her fully. But what happens now? Even if he believes us, even if command authorizes an investigation, the damage is done. 8 years of war, countless dead on both sides. Ariana's luminescence pulsed gently, a pattern Marcus had come to associate with thoughtfulness. Healing begins with truth, she said simply. My father is prepared to meet with your leaders, to establish a joint commission to investigate what really happened at Proxima. And what about us? Marcus asked, the question encompassing more than he intended. Ariana's expression softened. You saved my life at the cost of everything you knew. I gave you truth that shattered your understanding of your own people. We are both displaced now. My initial offer still stands, she continued after a moment, her tone cautious yet sincere. Not as a desperate bargain for survival, but as a possibility. In crisis, our species has always found new paths forward through genetic adaptation. Perhaps that principle applies to this crisis as well. Before Marcus could respond, the door slid open and Admiral Crane returned, his expression grave but resolute. Command has authorized preliminary diplomatic contact with the Zathura vessel, pending full investigation of the evidence you've provided. His gaze fixed on Marcus. They've also ordered your immediate arrest and court-martial, Lieutenant. I expected nothing less, sir, Marcus replied with dignity. However, Crane continued, I've convinced them to delay that order temporarily. You're the only human the Zathura commander seems willing to communicate through. Until formal diplomatic channels are established, you'll serve as liaison. His eyes narrowed slightly. Consider it a stay of execution, Hale. Make it count. Over the following days, A fragile peace was established between Commander Thelax's vessel and the Coalition fleet. Communications opened between higher authorities on both sides, with Marcus and Ariana serving as intermediaries, translators not just of language, but of cultural context and intention. The data from Frontier 9 proved damning. Dr. Ward was taken into custody pending investigation, along with several of the officials implicated in both her research program and the falsification of records regarding Proxima. While full diplomatic relations remained distant, a joint Truth Commission was established to investigate the origins of the conflict. Marcus found himself in an unprecedented position, neither fully accepted by his own people nor trusted by the Zathura, yet essential to both. The court-martial still loomed in his future, but for now, his unique role granted him a temporary reprieve. One evening, as they prepared for yet another diplomatic session, Ariana found him alone in the observation deck of the Coalition flagship, staring out at the stars and the distant Zathura vessel. "Your thoughts are troubled," she observed, coming to stand beside him. Marcus smiled faintly. "Is it that obvious? Or can your species read minds too?" "Neither. I simply know you now," she replied, her luminescence shifting to warmer tones in the dim lighting. "You wonder if what we're doing matters, if these talks and investigations can truly heal the wounds of 8 years of war." "Can they?" he asked simply. Ariana was silent for a moment, her gaze joining his in contemplating the vast expanse beyond the viewport. "Truth alone cannot resurrect the dead or rebuild destroyed worlds," she finally said. "But without truth, there can be no foundation for what comes next." She turned to face him, her luminescent eyes holding his. "When I first spoke to you, when I begged for mercy and offered my body's potential, I acted from desperation, from the instinct to survive. I never imagined a human would risk everything for an enemy, would choose compassion over duty. I never imagined I'd find myself questioning everything I believed about my own people," Marcus countered, "or finding more honor among those I was taught to hate." Ariana's hand moved to rest over his, cool, slightly electric, alien, yet increasingly familiar. "Perhaps that is the gift hidden within this tragedy. Through the worst of circumstances, we discovered that humanity and compassion exist on both sides of this conflict. That connection is possible even across the gulf of different worlds." Marcus turned his hand to clasp hers, a simple gesture that seemed to bridge species, politics, and the scars of war. "Show mercy, human." He quoted her first words to him, now transformed from desperate plea to mutual promise. Perhaps it's where it all begins. As they stood together, human and Zathura, the stars continued their silent witness to the tentative first steps toward reconciliation, and to the possibility that from the ashes of conflict, new understanding might emerge, as powerful and unexpected as the offspring their unlikely alliance symbolized.